Okay, hello everybody. I also have some good news to you. I'm actually not going to read the paper. לא שומעים. למה לא שומעים? Okay. So, the good news is that I'm not actually going to read you a paper today. And the reason why I'm not going to read the paper is that I didn't write one. And I want to explain to you very briefly why this is so. And I want to explain it because the explanation has some bearing on my topic here today, which is an Israeli perspective on the BDS and anti-Israelism. So actually, I was not supposed to be standing here today, but rather sitting there. The original plan was that I would chair this session, and the speaker will be someone by the name of Tzvi Ziegler. Maybe some of you know him. Tzvi Ziegler is a professor emeritus of mathematics in the Technion, and the reason why we thought, Alvin and myself and the other member of the organizing committee, that there is a room to invite the professor of mathematics to speak here, was that Tzvi Ziegler, Professor Tzvi Ziegler from the Technion, is heading a body, a kind of task force, which inter-university task force, which is in charge of studying, analyzing, trying to understand, and opposing not the BDS, but the academic boycott on Israel. And so we thought, I thought, that there was some point in listening to an Israeli who is involved in this matter, because among other things, or mainly because, at least from my point of view, is that since I've been involved in this discourse about Israel, about Zionism, Anti-Zionism, and all this, which is old, some 15 years now, I've come to realize that there are big differences of perception between the way we in Israel understand this matter and the way non-Israelis look about it. So we invited Tzvi Ziegler. There was some exchanges between him and Alvin and myself, and then I had a few phone calls with him, and next thing, he evaporates, simply disappears. And since I had a few conversations with him, I can assure you that he actually didn't come eventually because he thought that it was not worth the effort. Going all the way from Israel, all the way to Bloomington, it takes a long time, it's quite an effort. And he thought, probably still thinks, this was not important enough. And I think that this somehow expresses what I want to say. This is putting aside, not talking about his personal conduct, the lack of politeness and bit of rudeness, etc. But the fact that someone who in charge of dealing and opposing the academic boycott of Israel thinks that such a conference is not important enough is very revealing. And I think that I can understand him in a way. And I want to say a few words about this. To somehow highlight or pinpoint this difference of perceptions that I talked about before. The truth of the matter is that I'm sure that many who heard about this or knew about this find this behavior of Tzvi very questionable, strange. And many people, we have this experience very often. Visitors, newcomers to Israel, mainly Americans, but not only, think they can teach us lessons. They see the things better than we do. And this can be quite annoying, but because we think that the opposite. We think we understand better. And probably like in the old joke, we are both right. I want to, as I said, try to say a few things about this. The fact of the truth of the matter is also that many Israelis, most Israelis I would say, in academic life as well, in the universities, are not really interested in anti-Semitism. For most of us, those who were born or brought up in Israel, anti-Semitism is a rumor. It's not part of our life. It has never been part of our life. We heard about it, we learned about it. Our parents tell us if usually we don't care about listening to them about this, but it's not part of our immediate experience. Some Israelis are interested in this. Often they are not Israeli born. Most of them are now present here, actually. Otherwise, this is not an issue. It's not a real issue. However, lately it has become an issue. And it has become an issue in Israel not because of anti-Semitism as such, but because as we have been discussing it here today and in the in an ever-growing measures since the first and the second conferences and other opportunities, the real issue today is anti-Israelism. Whether anti-Israelism is, and in what way, anti-Semitism, this is a question that can be discussed. I myself discussed it a little bit. I think it is, yet there is a lot of specificity to this specific form of anti-Semitism we call anti-Israelism. The term itself is new, I think. It's been in use a few years only. We have never talked about anti-Israelism. It has now become a common term. Something has changed, and Israel has become the target, the issue of this very bleak, unpleasant, sometimes frightening, depressing picture we have been hearing all morning, all day actually. And we are going to hear more about this, of course, in the next 2 days. So Israel is, the stakes are Israel. The stakes is the existence of Israel. And yet, still, and despite the very intensive discussion in the newspapers, in the media, among politicians, among others, of this anti-Israelism, delegitimation of all kinds, BDS, etc., it's still somehow not perceived in Israel as one of the main issues Israeli society faces. I want to quote, just to give a very general idea, 2 or 3 numbers. In Yediot Achronot, 2 weeks ago, the weekend issue, in the economic supplement, there was a long article under the title, The Secret of Israeli Happiness. And then it goes, social unrest, feeling of depression. No, he says. Later, recent research shows that we are happy with our lives and optimistic than ever. And two numbers. There's a lot of discussion about Yerida in Israel. I'm sure you know. Everybody who reads the Haaretz knows that there is a lot of worry about what we call Yerida, emigration from Israel. In the last, according to the numbers he cites, in the last 10 years or so, the percentage of Yordim, of Israelis who leave the country, is 0.02%, lower than in all the Western countries. 86% of Israelis older than 20 years say they are satisfied with their life in Israel. 88% of Israelis are very satisfied or very satisfied from their life. And I could go on and on and on with this. There's another number which I want to quote, which I think is even more important. In Israel, we have this, what we call the Peace Index, Madad HaShalom, which is published by one organism of the Israeli Tel Aviv University, I think, every year, more or less. And it's very interesting reading. I just want to quote one number. To the question, the following question. Do you agree or not that Jews have a stronger link to the land of Israel than the Palestinians and the Arabs? Do you agree or disagree to this? The Arabs, not the Jews. 41.3 agree among Arab Israelis that the Jews have a stronger link to the land of Israel than the Arabs. 27% don't agree. I think that this, perhaps more than anything else, tells the story of the victory of Zionism. And there are many, many other facts of this of this kind that I could quote, but I won't, of course. I do not downplay, by all means, the importance of the things we have heard about today. What I want to say, and I know that most of the people, I guess, present here, and many, many others that I meet on many other occasions, are really concerned about what is going on, and they are concerned about us, about Israel. What will happen? The truth of the matter is that the modern anti-Semitism, modern anti-Israelism, BDS on the campuses, mainly in the United States, to some extent in the UK, other things that happen on the street in European countries, is a European and American problem. It's not an Israeli problem. one of the, I would say, how does the BDS or the delegitimation campaigns affect Israeli society? In few ways. I would mention two here. One of them, it creates a lot of pressure on the real estate market. All the French people who come to Israel, they find Israel less risky and more safer than to live in France. The other effect is that it reinforces the Israeli right and weaken the Israeli left and those voices who call for some kind of compromise or looking for a solution with the Arab world and with the Palestinians. Whether it is possible or not, I don't want to get into it, but we witness in the last years, following the violence, Palestinian armed violence, the wars, and the deteriorating image of Israel in Europe and in America, less in America than in Europe, that Israelis tend to identify this kind of discourse with the left and also with the Israeli left to some extent. If I think some of you know my book, so I dealt with this quite extensively. And the outcome is the rise of right-wing parties and in Israel politics. One more thing I have to say here. What I'm talking about, what I've been talking about now, is true for now. What will be the effect of this anti-Israeli campaign, of this anti-Israeli discourse, of the delegitimation of Israeli, of the image that is drawn on the media, much of the, so Die Zeit, The Guardian, Le Monde, Haaretz, is a thing that we shall have to see, and if there is any danger, and there is a danger to Israel, it is there. So far, there hasn't been much. We just heard from Meron about the economic situation, about economic ties with the Asian world countries. So far, Israeli, as far as I know, economy has been almost affected, not at all affected, here and there in the margins. And I want to come back to the end of my talk and mention once again, sorry, Tzvi Ziegler.
Poor guy.
I was talking with him, as I said, and I was trying to get from him, as I did from other people, preparing myself for this visit here, how bad is the academic boycott of Israel? And from what I could gather, and from my own personal experience, almost nil. It exists in the margins. Here and there we hear about someone who refuses to review a paper, to review a thesis, someone refuses to come to a conference. Why didn't they invite this or that to another conference? By and large, we don't feel it. It's not only Korean students. The Hebrew University is full with all kinds of students. Just a week before coming here, I organized an international conference, not on anti-Semitism this time, but on Descartes. And we have a few guests from abroad, one from England, one from the United States, two from France. All came, reacted to our invitation within the day, and they came with no questions whatsoever, and it was very pleasant. And this is actually what's going on normally. As I said, there are other things. We all know about them. It's very hard to find about them, but they exist, we know. So far, let's say the man who was falling from the Empire State Building, so good. What will happen later? It's very hard to predict. But for us in Israel, even for those of us like myself, I think, who do not play down at all the importance of the phenomena we are talking about, it is more an issue for Jews, faculty, students, others, on American campuses, in Europe, than for us in Israel. I remember a few, I have more time?
I think it's 1 minute.
1 minute, okay, so it's good. It's a story for 1 minute. Some time ago, I was invited to talk in London in front of a few Israeli students, about 20 or 25 Israeli students studying in England, and the distress of these people facing the anti-Israeli pressure was very touching, I must say. They have hard life being Israelis, living and studying abroad. I know a PhD student here in NYU who was advised by his advisor not to talk about Israel. Student making a PhD in political science. Keep quiet until you finish your thesis. Why invite troubles? This is not the case in Israel. This is a local problem, not an Israeli one. Thank you.